Thank you all very much for inviting us here to give the user's perspective. You know, we've been, a lot of you in the audience probably know about us. We were the people featured in Who Killed the Electric Car. We're the ones that have been driving electric cars for 8 to 10 years. And, you know, we've got a lot of experience on how this equipment is being used and how it will be used in the future. It's really enlightening and satisfying to see industry getting into it to the extent that it is. And we'd also like to thank the utilities for working with the cities and trying to smooth the process, because when I first got my car 8 years ago, Enid's company, Clean Fuel Connections, installed a 240-volt charger in my garage, and everything worked fine. And there was public charging out there. Not a lot of it, but some. When I went grocery shopping I chose Ralph's because Ralph's had a charger. I didn't go to Vaughn's. Vaughn's not getting my business because they didn't offer a charger. A little 20-cent worth of electricity for free did wonders. I spend $100 a pop in the Ralph store now. So that's how it's worked out. We had the charger at home. 90% plus of our charging is done at home. I do use public charging a lot because it's out there, and I want my car seen being charged at the public locations. And it definitely drives where I do my shopping. Montana Avenue in Santa Monica is my favorite street to shop on. I do a lot of business on Montana Avenue because they have a charger there. But what we found is that now that we're getting these new cars out, I have my Leaf on order, and I should be getting it in December. And I have since moved from a single-family home where I had my charger set up with my solar electricity on the roof. And that was a really clean installation. Everything worked fine for 8 years. Now I'm in a condo. I have 2 electric vehicles. I have an electric motorcycle and my old RAV4 EV, and no place to charge it at my condo. So I'm starting the process of going about trying to install a charger in there. And I thought it would be pretty clean, cut, and smooth and easy. It is not. I immediately got on the board of the HOA. So the HOA is not a problem. They're solidly behind us. And they're looking at me as like, okay, we all want to get an electric car too. How are we going to do this? And so I'm working with the city of Santa Monica, and the building and safety inspector is very much involved and very favorably inclined to make this work. But I have a 50 amp service panel for my condo. Turns out that's not enough for a 40 amp circuit to run a level 2 charger. So I'm probably, I've actually got a meeting set up for November 2nd with a field engineer from Edison and the building and safety inspector, and we're going to meet there with my electrician, and we're going to see if we can upgrade the panel to 100 amps. Very small chance that's going to work, but it might. Everybody wants to make it work if it can, and it'll probably be Edison's call. But if it doesn't, then I'm relegated to using level 1 charging at my house or at my condo. It's not a big issue for me because I work at a Nissan dealership selling the Leaf, and I've got access to free charging at work, and it's a mile away from my house. So it's not going to be a big deal for me, but I'm not looking at it for me so much as I'm looking at it, okay, what's the process for somebody who drives 40 miles to work and back? Because I actually have a fellow in Ventura who wants to buy a car from me, and that's his commute is 80 miles a day. And he says, can I do that on the Leaf? And I said, well, you definitely can do it on the Leaf. However, it might be nice if you had charging at work, just to top it off a little bit and guarantee you the ability to go further after work if you needed to. So there are those kinds of issues that we're running into, and and Santa Monica is a very good test case for this sort of thing, because a very high percentage of the residents of Santa Monica are multifamily residents. And so they're going to be having the same issue that I'm having. And what we're finding is the cars are delivering, and it's starting in December, and they're going to ramp up pretty quick. With the Volt and the Leaf alone, we're probably going to see hundreds of cars in Santa Monica within 2 or 3 or 4 months, and thousands very shortly after that. So the fact that I'm having a little bit of trouble getting charging infrastructure means that we've got a lot of work cut out for us, and the cities and the utilities definitely need to get on the same page and work with the multifamily people and try to figure this out. It's not going to be hard for everybody. In some cases where you park might be right next to the electric panel, and in that case it might be very easy to run the conduit, and maybe you've got enough service into that condo that you can run 240 for all the spaces, possibly. If it's a new building and not a lot of parking spaces, maybe that's not an issue. In my case, it's a 1969 construction, 72 units. And it's, you know, I can guarantee you we're not going to be running level 2 to every parking space. We are going to try to see if there's the ability to do a level 2 on just off the main meter, the common area, because that definitely has capacity. But then you're set with the problem of, okay, who pays for that electricity? And obviously, if we could go with a Coulomb system or something like that, where we can actually set a price at which the buyer or the charging individual can purchase electricity, and then you've got to coordinate who charges when. So those are issues that we're looking at. You know, at the very beginning stages, it's not going to be a big deal because there might only be 2 or 3 electric cars in there the first year or 2. And, you know, they'll coordinate with each other. It won't be a big deal. Or they'll do like I'm going to do and just run a 120-volt line to where they park their car and just, you know, charge on level 1. So these are the kinds of issues we're looking at. There are a lot more. Certainly public charging is a big deal for me because now that I have to charge my car in public space exclusively, you know, I'm really seeing what it's like for people who haven't the ability to charge at home. And we do have a lot of folks out there in apartments who, you know, I'm in a good situation in that I'm in a condo with a secured parking space, but there are tens of thousands, if not more, in the LA area who park on the street. They have no access to electricity where they park at home. So workplace charging is going to be a big deal for them, you know, if their workplace allows it. And otherwise, you know, DC quick charge, you know, will be, you know, a big boon to them as well. But I don't know that you want to do that exclusively with your car, because the ability to charge, or the damage to the batteries, if that's all you do is DC quick charge, might be, you know, problematic. At any rate, you know, I hope we have the ability to answer some questions afterwards. But my time is up, so I'm going to let the next speaker talk.
Hi there, I'm Mark Geller. I think I simply really want to point out that there is a resource available to you. The Plug in America was asked by the Puget Sound Regional Council in Washington to help them devise some model ordinances and guidelines for folks probably like yourself in the attempt to reconcile all the issues around permitting and public infrastructure, et cetera. Part of what we did for that is do an experienced EV driver survey. Of the sort that had never been done, because there really aren't that many experienced EV drivers around, in an attempt to get the actual experience of EV drivers into the process. If you go to psrc.org, you can, that's psrc.org, you can get the results and freely use for yourself all kinds of descriptions we have of model public parking spaces, of enclosed parking spaces, of how to avoid the dilemmas that have occurred before, where you place parking for EV charging too close to, too prominently, and end up having all kinds of, mostly non-electric cars located there. But this survey, which you can get at psrc.org, gives you some basis for understanding this from the actual drivers, where we experienced problems. We found, for example, that 50% of the complaints about charging infrastructure was chargers that were down or were vandalized. And so that informed our guidelines to the hosts of charging infrastructure in terms of making sure that that stuff is maintained. Interestingly, we asked, when did people charge? Because there's tremendous concern from the utilities and others about off-peak charging and on-peak charging, and when will people charge? Well, what we found was that the majority of folks charged off-peak. They charged between midnight and 6 a.m. In many cases, not because they actually were on time of use metering and thus getting some economic advantage, but in fact because it was simply either the right thing to do or the logical thing to do in their case. It just simply would have been more difficult to charge it at another time. So I think that a lot of this, these things will point towards good practices as we go forward. One of the things that we clearly need to be concerned about is what level of charging we put in different places. And I think that as we have our long conversations about level 2 and DC fast charging and where to place them, and I think we're all going to be involved in trying to figure that out, one thing we ought to consider is, are there places where 120, 110, whatever you would like to call it, is appropriate? And just one example I just want to leave you with is airport long-term parking. I'm waiting to see the first level 2 charger put in airport long-term parking and see the essential waste of resources that might entail. There's no reason long-term parking ought not have banks of 110 infrastructure, plugs essentially. All the new cars are going to be able to charge on 110. If someone's charging at long-term parking, they're there for 24 hours. I dare say even a Tesla could fill up in a couple of days. So I think we need to appropriate our resources in the correct place, not overlook really simple solutions, 110, and then involving the experienced in the process as we go forward would, I think, be very helpful. And this PSRC study is one of the ways you can do that. And Plug in America is really always there ready to help you guys. Thanks.